Applications of linear equations, word problems. Okay, we're going to go through 3 different examples. Let's look at the first one. So it says a couple must decide whether to buy a used car for $8,800 or lease a new car. That means pay some money in the beginning and then pay monthly. So it says $2,500 in the beginning and then pay monthly for 36 months. So let's make a visual of what is happening. The first choice is to buy a used car for $8,800. Okay, that's one option. The second option that the couple is deciding about is they could get a brand new car, put a little bit less money down to start with, but then have to pay every month $225. So if they choose that second choice and lease a new car, they'll get a newer car, but in the end, they're probably going to have to pay more. Okay, so now we can see more clearly the choices. Let's look at the questions. Okay, part A says write a model. That usually means write an equation for the cost to lease the car. So we're talking about choice 2. We want an equation for cost. So let's just in English think about what they're asking. The cost will be the down payment, which is the amount of money that they have to pay at the very beginning. Then we add the monthly payment, but since we have to pay that every month, we need to multiply that payment times the number of months we pay it. So if we were to take out the words and replace them with numbers and letters to make it look more like math, we would get this. Instead of cost, we can just say C. The down payment in this case we know is $2,500. The monthly payment in this case we know is $225. And instead of writing 36 months, it said actually they want the equation to just use the letter T for months. That way, while I'm in the middle of paying, I can use this equation to calculate how much I've paid total at any number of months, after 5 months, after 6 months, and so on. Before I finish with that equation, I'm just going to put a little number 2 here to say the cost for choice 2 as compared to the cost for choice 1. Choice 2 is leasing the car. That's an equation for how much it's going to cost me after any number of months. Well, now let's look at the question part B. It says, after how many months will the cost to lease the new car equal the cost to buy the new car? So what they're really asking is, when is the cost to lease, the second choice, equal to the cost to buy? When does that happen? Well, we found the equation in part A, which represents the cost to lease the car. So let's rewrite that. It's $2,500 plus 225 times the number of months T. That's the cost to lease a new car. And they're saying, when will that cost have been exactly the same as the cost to buy the used car? So buying the used car we know was $8,800. So at what point, after how many months, is the cost exactly the same? Well, this is just a linear equation, and we have to try to isolate the letter T. We want T all alone to know how many months that will occur. So first thing we want to do is isolate the T. We'll remove the 2,500 from the left. So I will subtract 2,500 from both sides. Then I'm left with just the 225T on the left. And on the right, 8,800 minus 2,500 is 6,300. Now for my last step, I want T to be isolated all alone. So if I want to remove 225 times T, I'll divide both sides by 225, and I will get a final answer as T equals 28 months. So after 28 months, each of those 2 choices would cost exactly the same, buying the used car or leasing the new car. Okay, here's another example. Someone wants to rent a storage unit. This is a problem we have a lot in America, where people have too much stuff and it doesn't fit in their house. So here's a picture of too much stuff, it doesn't fit in your house. So the solution a lot of people choose is, instead of throwing away their stuff, they rent a storage unit. So now let's look at the question. Of course, to rent a unit and put your stuff in it, it's going to cost money. So let's first write in words what the cost is going to be. So let's read the question. They pay a fixed deposit of $150. So they'll pay $150 at the very start. And then it says plus, so I can put a plus, $52.50 in rent each month. So it's the monthly rental charge, but we don't just pay that once, we pay that every month. So we would multiply that times the number of months. So again, let's move this from being more of an English equation with English words to letters and numbers. So the cost we'll just call C. The fixed deposit we know. So we have to pay $150 no matter what on day one. Doesn't matter how long we leave the stuff in there. But then for each month, we pay $52.50 and we'll multiply that times the number of months. Now I don't know the number of months that we're going to rent it for, so we'll just use the letter T, it stands for time, for some number of months. So that would be the model or the equation that would represent the cost. Okay, let's look at part B. It says Winston has $1,200 budgeted. Basically what that means is that's the maximum he can pay. Okay, so his maximum cost is $1,200. How many months can he rent the unit? So they're saying if C is $1,200, find T. Find the number of months that he can rent it and still pay no more than $1,200. So we will just replace the $1,200 into our equation. And now we will use our algebra steps to solve. So the first thing, we want to isolate T. We want T all alone. So we can subtract this 150 from both sides. On the left, 1,200 minus 150 is 1,050. On the right, we just have 52.50 T. Now we want T all alone. We want to know what is T. So we need to isolate it, which means looking at the right, we want to remove this 52.50 times T. The opposite of times is divide. We do the same thing on both sides, so we're not changing anything. And when we simplify, when we divide, we get that T is 20 months. So he can keep all his stuff in that storage unit for 20 months before he runs out of money. Okay, for the last example, they're talking about the tuition and fees to go to a college and study. Now, some people are lucky enough to go to college or university for free, but most people have to pay a lot for it. What's nice about this question is they already gave us the equation. So it says the cost is 167.95x. X stands for the number of credit hours that's given in the question. And 94 must be the fees that you have to pay. So first question says, what's the cost to take 9 credit hours? So they're saying if X equals 9, the number of credit hours equals 9, then we should find the cost. So this is a case where we just replace X equals to 9 in the original equation and calculate C. So we replace 9 where it said X in the original equation. We put that in our calculator and we get a final cost of $1,605.55 if you want to take 9 credit hours at this college. Now the second question is actually going in reverse. They told us what Jenna spent, what her cost was, and we want to go backwards and find how many credit hours she took. So we want to find what was X. So in this case, we'll put C equals 2445.30 into the equation. Then we have to do a little bit of algebra to solve for X. Okay, I replaced C into the equation. Now we want to isolate X. So our first step will be to subtract 94 from both sides. Then we'll have 2351.30 equals 167.95x. Again, we want to isolate x, so we'll divide both sides by 167.95. And we find out that Jenna took 14 credit hours.